This hat won't fucking fit. But it's alright because we finally come to the end of a long and turbulent season. Who'd have thought, all the way back in March actually, that we'd be sitting here with all 36 races completed. It's been an absolutely crazy season. We got 3 drivers retiring from the sport. One moving to IndyCar, one moving to the TV booth, and one just going back home. And we have a what is in my opinion a brand new megastar in the NASCAR Cup Series. And there's a lot of silly season shit and some other shit that we gotta talk about here today. So, for the final time this season, ladies and gentlemen, this is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packer Man, and welcome to today's edition of the Fuel. The season finale for the Fuel here in 2020. As we're going to be talking about the aptly named Season Finale 500 at Phoenix. What a crazy ass season. We've seen the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. We didn't even know if we were going to get this entire season in after a 2.5 month break, but you know, gotta give NASCAR credit where credit is due. They stuck with it, and they managed to get all 36 races in, come hell or high water. And you know, that's all you can really ask for. But as for this Championship 4 race itself, I mean, it was alright. I mean, there were some parts of it that were boring as all hell. But, I mean, there were some parts that were actually really good, and we're going to get into all that. Of course, as you all know, Chase Elliott is the 2020 Cup Series champion, and we had a passing of the torch moment at the end of that race, and after the race as well. Just an absolutely crazy season. And we finally get to take a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather, about 3 months before we hit up the 2021 season. But before we get into all of that, we got a lot of things to, got some housekeeping to do as far as news is concerned. A lot of it is silly season stuff. So for the final time, here is news of the week. Alright, so first things first, let's go to IndyCar real quick. Even though this is a bit late to the party, but we're going to go, since I haven't covered it yet, I'm going to go ahead and do so. The St. Petersburg Grand Prix, of course it was held in late October again due to the whole coronavirus crap. But here are the top 10 results for the St. Petersburg Grand Prix and the championship results as well, as soon as it pops up. Once we get to the IndyCar stuff, we got a lot of shit to talk about in terms of silly season for NASCAR. So, Joseph Newgarden ended up with the win. Basically did everything he could do to try to catch Scott Dixon for the championship, but it just wasn't enough. Led 21 of the race's 100 laps. Pato O'Ward came home in the runner-up position. And you had Scott Dixon rounding out the podium. And you had Sebastian Bourdais, his first start in a bit. Ryan Hunter-Reay in 5th, Simon Pagenaud 6th, Marcus Ericsson 7th. Then you have Charlie Kimball, Graham Rahal, and Takuma Sato rounding out the top 10. So your final championship standings are Scott Dixon with his 6th IndyCar championship with 537 points. Joseph Newgarden with a great defense of the championship, but came up just 16 points short. Then you have Colton Herta, who ended up 3rd in the championship. Had a win earlier this year, so great run for him. His sophomore effort. You had Pato O'Ward in a 4th position. Came close to a win a couple of times, but couldn't quite get there. but nice top 4 run for him in the points. Will Power notched 2 wins. And a 5th place point showing in Graham Rahal rounds out your top 6 in the IndyCar standings. So with that out of the way, let's move over to Formula One first for a moment. Yes, Formula One. I know I don't talk about Formula One a whole hell of a lot, but this is actually really important. But Lewis Hamilton surpassed Michael Schumacher for the most wins all time. A record that many thought would never be broken or even approached, and yet Lewis Hamilton has done so, and he's still only 35 years of age. He's still at least got a couple more years left in his Formula One career at his peak. And just to give you context, Michael Schumacher's previous former record was 91 career wins. I mean, that's just crazy. But Lewis Hamilton, he's about to, if he hasn't already, he's about to clinch a 7th Formula One World Championship, which would tie him with Michael Schumacher. And with his win, he now has 92 wins. Hold on 1 second. No, he equaled. Okay, he actually has 93 wins. Because he equaled Michael Schumacher's record at the Eiffel Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, and then he broke the record in Portugal. And then he won the most recent Grand Prix in Italy, which means he's at 93. So by the end of the year, he could have 97 career wins, which is just unreal. And I think he has a 7th world title locked up at this point. No, not yet. But he's damn close. I mean, he nearly has a 100-point lead on his teammate, Bottas. Just wow. He's won 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and he's won 9 Grand Prix this year. Unreal. So yeah, Lewis Hamilton has 93 career wins at this point. I mean, it's not going to be very much longer before he hits the 100 mark, and that's going to be something special. So congratulations to Lewis Hamilton on that accomplishment. Let's see, we did the IndyCar standings. Lewis Hamilton. Alright, so championships were earned this past weekend, not only in the Cup Series but also the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. First, let's look to the Truck Series, where a guy by the name of Sheldon Creed ended up as the Truck Series champion after an overtime restart. Now, like I said before, the playoff system is fucking trash. But, you know, regardless of how you feel about the playoff system, I mean, Sheldon Creed, he's a fucking driver, man. I mean, this is just his sophomore effort in the Truck Series, and he earned 5 victories, I believe, in 2020. And let's not forget, this is the same guy who I think won 2 championships in Robbie Gordon's Stadium Super Truck Series. And he said, you know what, I'm going to give stock car racing a try. Goes out, wins the ARCA title, which I can understand that some people will be like, yeah, but the ARCA series just isn't what it used to be, which is a fair argument. But then he goes out and wins the Truck Series title in his 2nd year. I mean, 3 completely different disciplines and 3 championships. He's won championships in all 3. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling, the talent that this guy has. And there's no question in my mind. I think he's going to be moving up to Xfinity in the near future. Maybe not next year, but I think it'll be sooner rather than later. And then we have the Xfinity Series Championship, It was not Chase Briscoe. Instead, it was Austin Cindric, who ended up as the Xfinity Series champion, which, I mean, that just goes to show you how dumb this playoff format is, because Chase Briscoe was the dominant driver of the entire season. I think he won like 9 races or something like that, 8 or 9. And instead it's Austin Cindric who ends up with the championship. I mean, Cindric, I mean, to his credit, I mean, he was kicking ass and taking names earlier this season as well. But, I mean, in comparison to Briscoe, I mean, it just doesn't compare. But, I mean, Briscoe, he's heading to the Cup Series next year. So, you know, as well as Ross Chastain, he's moving up to the Cup Series. I think that was, I think I already talked about that before, where Ross Chastain is going to be moving into the 42 car to replace Matt Kenseth for next year as well. So Chase Briscoe, he's moving up, but those are your two lower tier division champions, Sheldon Creed in the Truck Series and Austin Cindric in the Xfinity Series. Of course, speaking of Chase Briscoe, like I said, he's going to be moving to drive the 14 car next year for Stewart-Haas Racing, replacing the retiring Clint Bowyer. He's going to be going into the Fox broadcast booth next year. I think it's well earned by Chase Briscoe. I mean, holy shit, 9 wins this year on a wide variety of different tracks. I mean, that's just absolutely incredible. Eric Jones has found a new home. He has been signed to drive the 43 car for Richard Petty Motorsports in 2021. So definitely a bit of a downgrade for him in relation to where he was, but at least he's found a drive for next year in the Cup Series. So I don't think it's going to be a race-winning car, but you know, you never know. And he might be able to find his way back into a top-tier ride in the future. We've learned the name of Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan's new race team that they're starting up next year for their driver Bubba Wallace. It's going to be 2311 Racing with the 23 and 11, and next to it is 11 in Roman numerals. So, and it should be obvious why it's called that. I mean, 2311 Racing. I mean, Michael Jordan is synonymous with number 23, and of course Denny Hamlin, the 11 is pretty much the only number he's driven in the Cup Series. I mean, he's been with Joe Gibbs Racing 11 since he was a rookie. You know, all the way back in 2006. So he's been in that same car for 14 years. So that 11 car has become synonymous with Denny Hamlin here in the modern day. And that's going to be the name of Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's new race team, 2311 Racing. How good are they going to be next year? We have absolutely no idea whatsoever. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. And finally, in the biggest news that basically came out, Kyle Larson applied for reinstatement to NASCAR, and it was accepted. He will be officially reinstated into NASCAR starting in January of 2021, January 1st, 2021, I should say. So he'll be able to participate next year. And in response to that, Hendrick Motorsports made the move to sign him to drive their 5 car in 2021. Of course, Jimmie Johnson's retiring at the end of this year. Of course, he's now retired, I should say. So Alex Bowman's going to be moving from the 88 to the 48, and the 88 is going to be re-numbered from 88 to 5 back to the Hendrick Motorsports number 5 for Kyle Larson to drive next year. Now, one downside to this is that there are currently no sponsors on the 5 car to start with in 2021, probably because sponsors are still a little bit leery of Kyle Larson, especially after what happened earlier this year. So, you know, there's that. But hopefully with some good runs, he'll get back into the good graces of the sponsors, and maybe the 5 team will be able to get a sponsor somewhere down the road in 2021, if they don't get one before the start of the season. But that's pretty much it for news of the week. Some champions crowned, some silly season shit, some stuff outside of NASCAR and open wheel racing. And that's pretty much it. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the final review of 2020. Alright, so here we go with the review of the season finale 500 at Phoenix International Raceway. I don't know if it's still called ISM Raceway, but who gives a shit. There's not going to be a whole lot to talk about, not from an action standpoint, because there's some stuff to talk about. It's just that this race went by damn fast. I mean, it only took 2 hours and 47 minutes to complete this race. And of course, when you only have 2 legit caution flags, one of which was kind of a silly one, you know, in the middle of stage 2. But other than that, there weren't any true crashes. I mean, that second one was for a scrape of the wall by James Davison, which I don't think you should have thrown the caution for that. And the other one was a competition caution. Those were the only cautions of the day. You know, none for debris, none for crashes or anything of that sort. This race was clean and green. So that's one plus. What was not a plus is this first stage, because it was boring as fuck. But here were the stage breakdowns. Stage 1, 75 laps. Stage 2, 115 laps. Stage 3, 122 laps. Chase Elliott was originally going to start on the pole, but he failed pre-race inspection twice, so he had to start from the rear of the field for his run to the championship, and what a run it was. So Joey Logano would lead the field to the green, another of the championship 4 contenders. So he leads lap number 1. Keselowski and Hamlin fight for the second position. Then we have a battle for second between Keselowski, Hamlin, and Blaney that went on for a pretty good bit. But Elliott was back into the top 10 just 28 laps in, so it was pretty clear he had a fast car in this race. The first caution came out on lap 31, competition caution, of course, you know, standard stuff. Everyone comes in for service. Logano wins the race off pit road, so he leads on the restart. And Elliott's already up to the top 5 by the end of this stage, and I was like, man, that car is fast. He's a contender today. And Logano wins stage 1. I mean, that's really the only things of note from stage 1. Stage 1 fucking sucked ass. Everyone comes in for service. Logano wins the race off pit road yet again, so he leads the start of stage 2. Hamlin challenges Logano for the lead, but is unable to get it. Hamlin keeps it close to Logano, but can't make the pass for the lead. Chase Elliott comes up to challenge and joins the fray, which makes this a 3-way fight for the lead. So this is when things really started to get interesting. Elliott moves past Hamlin into second, and then challenges Logano for the race lead, and finally takes it for a first pure lead change on lap 120. Hamlin gets by Logano for second, as Logano's Hamlin team to start falling off at this point. Alex Bowman kicks off green flag pit stops on lap 136. Elliott pits from the lead on lap 140. Keselowski actually had to pit much earlier than everybody else because he felt a vibration, and pretty much showed that fresh tires were a big deal here, because him pitting much earlier than everyone else meant that he was on fresher tires, which was about a second faster than everybody else, which on a mile racetrack is pretty damn fast. So he actually managed to get into the lead, leapfrogging Elliott, but Elliott actually managed to pass him back once the 9 got fresher tires. Of course, there were still some guys that had stayed out for a little bit longer to try to stretch the fuel mileage. But Elliott passes Almirola for the lead, but I'm not counting it as a pure lead change because Almirola had yet to pit. And then we had our second caution on lap 161 when James Davison scraped the wall in turn 1, like I said, but actually kept it going. I thought that was a really silly caution to throw. For NASCAR to throw, I should say. But that was the last one of the night. I mean, I don't count the stage caution, so this was the last caution of the season. Everyone comes in for service. Kurt Busch takes just 2 tires. Interesting strategy. And he leads on the restart. Elliott gets by the 1 to retake the lead on the restart. Kez moves up to second and starts challenging Elliott for the race lead, and actually manages to get by him for our second pure lead change on lap 173. But this is when it really got interesting, because these two actually went back and forth multiple times for this race lead near the end of the second stage. I'm thinking to myself, man, these two might be the ones to go for the championship at the end of this race. That would have happened, but we'll get to that in a second. But Elliott then powers back by Keselowski for the race lead several laps later. about 10 laps later on lap 183, but Kez keeps things close, and he actually got Elliott loose coming out of turn 2, and actually manages to get to the inside and passes Elliott for the lead in turns 3 and 4 to actually win stage 2. So he actually got the stage win in the last turn. So that's our 4th pure lead change on lap 190, right at the end of the stage. So that's like pretty good, pretty damn good. So everyone comes in for service, and Elliott wins the race off pit road this time. Keselowski's crew, they were just off their game in this race. I mean, this was the same crew that helped Austin Cindric win the Xfinity title, but here in this Cup race, not good, not good. That being said, though, all the championship 4 were inside the top 4 as we hit the final stage with Chase Elliott leading. Logano tries to keep things close with Elliott. Keselowski and Hamlin battle for the 3rd position. And then things kind of settled down here, and it was just kind of moving along at kind of a slow, sluggish pace. Well, not slow, but I mean, it was just boring. Then we finally have green flag pit stops on lap 251. Logano is the first of the championship 4 to pit. Hamlin was right behind him. Elliott and Keselowski come in on the next lap. Logano is actually able to leapfrog Elliott on the undercut on the pit exchange to take over the lead. But Keselowski actually comes out behind Hamlin because Kez's crew have yet another slow stop, putting him back and forth on the racetrack and the title contenders. I guarantee you, if the 2 team wasn't slow pieces of shit in this race, Keselowski, I think, would have been right there contending for the championship with Chase Elliott. But his pit crew, I think, cost Keselowski the championship. I mean, there's just no excuse for that sort of thing, especially with a title on the line. But Elliott closes the gap. I mean, he had a fast car to begin with, but now he has 1 lap on the fresher tires, which I think turned out to be the difference here, because he was able to pass Logano for the race lead quite easily for a 5th and final pure lead change on lap 269, which would end up being the championship winning move. Keselowski gets by Logano for 2nd, but it's 3.5 seconds with 10 laps to go. So it was obvious that Keselowski had a fast enough car to challenge Elliott, but by the time he got up to 2nd, it was too little too late. No other cautions the rest of the race, and Chase Elliott wins the race and the championship, his 5th win of the year. And a little bit of an interesting stat. Back in 1988, the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA title. The Los Angeles Dodgers won the World Series. A number 9 car won the kart title, because that's what American Open Wheel Racing's sanctioning body was back then. And Bill Elliott won the NASCAR Cup Series championship. And then here in 2020, the Los Angeles Lakers win the NBA title. The Los Angeles Dodgers win the World Series. Scott Dixon in car number 9 wins the IndyCar title, and now Chase Elliott in car number 9 wins the Cup title. That's just insane. So basically, for you Elliott fans, if the LA Lakers and the LA Dodgers and Scott Dixon win the championship in the same year, odds are Chase is going to be winning the Cup title as well. Unbelievable. And the emotions in Victory Lane was just, well, I say Victory Lane, but right there on the front stretch was unbelievable. Bill Elliott was out there. He gave his son a big old hug, and Chase's mother was out there as well. Then Jimmie Johnson came up to him and gave him a big hug. Passing of the torch right there, because that was Jimmie's final race. And Chase Elliott, of course, NASCAR's most popular driver now, ends up winning the Cup Series title. And even though, you know, I think the Cup title is not as prestigious as it once was in recent years, because of the fact that NASCAR's most popular driver ended up winning the championship, I think this is going to catapult Elliott into super stardom. You know, because now he has a Cup title to go along with all of his accomplishments. And, you know, there were some people that were saying, oh, you know, Chase Elliott's overrated, you know, and all this other shit. And it's just like, come on, really? I mean, how is someone who has 11 wins in 3 seasons overrated? I'm pretty sure it's 11 wins that he has now, because he won the final 2 races of the season, which he actually did. He also did a little bit of a stat buster, because as it turned out, in NASCAR's entire history, the driver who won the race in an election year did not go on to win the series title in that same year. And Chase Elliott ended up winning the Martinsville race the previous week. Of course, this is an election year. And then he ends up winning the finale at Phoenix, and he also wins the Cup title as well. So he ended up just completely busting that trend. Just unbelievable. But I'm fairly certain that Chase Elliott has 11 career wins now in the Cup Series. Yep, he has 11 career wins in the Cup Series in 185 starts. And I think he's been full-time in the Cup Series since 2016. So that's 5 full-time seasons in the Cup Series. Didn't win any races his first 2 years, but in the last 3 years he's won 11 times. And now he has a Cup title on top of that. You're going to call that overrated? Give me a break. I mean, that's just stupid shit. I mean, he has more wins now than fucking Clint Bowyer, who's been around since 2006 in the Cup Series, I believe. I mean, just enough of that nonsense. Okay, he now has a Cup title. I mean, yes, the value of it has diminished, but fair is fair, you know. And here's the thing. I'm not, you know, what I would consider a fan of Chase Elliott. And that doesn't mean I hate the guy either. That's not it whatsoever. I'm just, you know, I'm not like a super hardcore fan of his, you know what I mean? I'm not the type of guy, I mean, I'm not wearing his gear, you know, or any of that stuff. You know, I'm just indifferent. But I do respect his talent behind the wheel, you know, because, I mean, he won the Xfinity title in 2014, you know, and then he gets behind the wheel of the Hendrick Motorsports number 24, which then transitions to the 9, and look at him now. You know, he's won at least 3 races the last 3 years. He won 5 times this year, including the All-Star race. Let's not forget that either. And ends up winning the championship. But no, he's overrated. Okay, whatever. But he'll let his statistics do the talking. But yeah, that's how it all went down in the season finale 500. So let's get to the results, and we will finally wrap this season up. Alright, so here are your numbers. Lead change count. In this race, we actually ended up with 19 overall lead changes in this race. Not bad. With 5 pure lead changes. So kind of a lowish number, I guess, in terms of pure lead changes, but I mean, it was alright. Alright total for the final race of the year. But I'll tell you this much. That's a hell of a lot better than this exact race 1 year ago. Last year's race was fucking trash. So at least this race was somewhat decent. You know what I mean? Star of the race. This one was a little bit of a tough decision, but I'm actually going to, for this time around, just because of the significance of it, I'm actually going to give this award to 2 drivers this week. One, of course, is Chase Elliott, obviously, who became the Cup Series champion. The 3rd youngest driver to do so, behind only Jeff Gordon. And, damn it. Who was the other guy? He won the title all the way back in 1950. And at the age of 23. And that's a record that has stood since 1950. Bill Rexford. He is the still the youngest Cup Series champion in history. All the way back in 1950. So that record has stood for 70 years. That's unreal. But Chase Elliott is the third youngest driver to win the championship. So he is the star of the week. And on top of that, so is Jimmie Johnson. Because he actually managed to get a 5th place finish in his final race. And of course, he had that moment with Chase, where they basically did like a little handshake when they started driving opposite directions, and of course the hug at the end. But for Jimmie to get a top 5 finish in his final race, just right behind the championship 4 drivers, I think that was a pretty cool moment. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, Jimmie, in the past, he's never been my favorite driver. And in fact, for a while, he was my most hated driver. But, there's no question that he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. The guy's basically done everything you can do in the Cup Series. Jesus Christ. He's won all the crown jewels multiple times. Of course, 5 championships in a row, a feat that may never be duplicated again. So, what else can you say at this point? Now, you might think that reject of the race might be a bit difficult to select because of how clean this race was, which at first glance is a pretty good point. But, when it comes to, helping your driver out, the pit crew is also a pretty big part of that. This is considered a team sport, whether some people want to believe it or not. So, my reject of the race is Brad Keselowski's pit crew. They were just god-awful in this race, and especially on that final pit stop. Lost him several seconds on track. Actually, he fell behind Denny Hamlin, who had come in a lap before. But they just had an awful pit stop. He eventually made it back up to second, but had he not had those bad pit stops, he probably would have been a contender for the championship. So, yeah, Brad Keselowski's pit crew was the reject of the race, and I think for good reason. But what do you say we do the top 10 results as soon as I can find them? Unless, oh, there they are. Okay. All right, top 10 results. Of course, Chase Elliott with the victory. 153 laps led, the most of all drivers. Brad Keselowski in second, Joey Logano third, Denny Hamlin fourth. So Hamlin once again not a Cup Series champion. And in fact, this is the second straight year he was the bottom of the barrel in terms of the championship 4. This time around, the car just wasn't that good. Jimmie Johnson, a top 5 result in his final race as a full-time driver. And then the rest of the top 10, you have Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick, Matt DiBenedetto, William Byron, and Martin Truex Jr. as your top 10 finishers. Your championship results. We'll do the top 20, because why not? Of course, Chase Elliott, the champion, Brad Keselowski in P2, and then Logano and Hamlin. Kevin Harvick actually managed to end up in the 5th position, so even though he didn't make the championship 4, he managed to get 5th in points pretty handily. Alex Bowman, 6th place in points, not bad. Martin Truex Jr. in 7th. He was actually tied with Kyle Busch, who despite all of his problems managed to finish in the top 10 in points and keep his 1 win per season streak going. Ryan Blaney comes home 9th in the points, and Kurt Busch with a 10th place points finish. And then you have Austin Dillon, Clint Bowyer, Matt DiBenedetto, William Byron, Eric Almirola, and then Cole Custer, Eric Jones, Jimmie Johnson, Tyler Reddick, and Christopher Bell as your top 20 finishers in the point standings. As for my final rating for the season finale 500 at Phoenix, the first stage was garbage. The beginning of stage 3 was kind of garbage. Stage 2 was actually really good. So this was kind of an average race. But due to the fact that that the race was actually pretty clean. That's going to bump it up a little bit. So my final rating for the season finale 500 will be a 5.5 out of 10. So above average race. A pretty decent finale. I mean, it wasn't anything special. I mean, other than, you know, Chase Elliott, the moment with Chase Elliott and Jimmie Johnson. So, I mean, there's that. But, I mean, other than that, nothing too spectacular or anything memorable from this race. So, that's basically it. So, we have come to the end of the season at long last. But I think it's kind of fitting that this is the 70th episode of The Fuel, which means that the 71st episode of The Fuel is going to be the Daytona 500. So I think that's pretty appropriate. But that is going to do it for a very crazy ass 2020 season. Didn't think we would be at this point, especially after what happened earlier this year, but here we are. And now we get to take a nice 3-month break, kind of recharge the batteries, and then we'll reconvene in February and do it all over again. But for those of you who stuck it out, I know there's not a whole lot of people on YouTube. I know there are some viewers on BitChute though that watch my videos. But for those of you who stuck it out, thank you very much for watching this season here on The Fuel. What a crazy season this was. But that's going to do it. We're done. We're done! We made it! But look forward to doing this again next year when we start Season 3 of The Fuel. But until then, thank you very much for watching this season. And until next season, this is the Packer Man signing out. See you later, everybody. You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.